Civil rights lawyer, author Bryan Stevenson has long understood this country has centuries of history of presuming young black men dangerous and guilty. For the last few decades, he's done extraordinary work to counter that long historical impulse. He's the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, an organization that challenges convictions and racial injustice, fights to get people out of jail. He's the creator of the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, which is dedicated to the victims of lynching and other forms of racial terror during the Jim Crow era. And joining me now is civil rights lawyer Bryan Stevenson. Bryan, it's wonderful to have you. I've been wanting to talk to you throughout this. I want to start tonight with an image that I would just like you to respond to and reflect upon, given how much you've spoken about this country's history. This is the Lincoln Memorial in the nation's capital. The Lincoln Memorial, Abraham Lincoln, who oversaw the bloody fight to end slavery in this nation, was assassinated before Reconstruction. And these are American soldiers there to protect that memorial from people who might come and chant Black Lives Matter. I wonder what you think when you see that.
Well, it's deeply disturbing, but it's also evidence that we haven't really reckoned with the history of our country. I'm a product of Brown versus Board of Education. I grew up in a community where children couldn't go to the public schools when I was born. I started my education in a colored school. There were no high schools for Black kids. When my dad was a teenager, he couldn't go to high school in our county. And when racial integration came, many of us believed that this nation would change. None of us thought that 50 years later, Black people would still be menaced and targeted and marginalized. And what I realized is that we have to reckon with this long history. And that image speaks to our failure to deal with the mythology that we created. The great evil that we are facing in America is this legacy created during slavery, this myth that Black people are not as good as white people. The enslavers who justified slavery had to create a narrative to make that institution, which was so barbaric, acceptable. And so they said that Black people are less deserving, Black people are less human, Black people are less evolved, less worthy. And that ideology of white supremacy continued past 1865. It's why I've argued that slavery doesn't end in 1865, it just evolves. And law enforcement and these institutions of militarized power became the tools that sustained that. It was law enforcement that allowed Black people to be ravaged and massacred and killed during Reconstruction. White Southerners overthrew governments because there was no protection. And that ideology of white supremacy was even greater than our commitment to the Constitution, because the 14th Amendment should have protected Black and brown people, should have allowed Black people to vote. And then throughout the 20th century, the first half of the 20th century, law enforcement stood back and allowed Black people to be pulled out of jails and lynched on the courthouse lawn and terrorized and menaced until millions fled to the North and West, where they were once again targeted and menaced by the police in Cleveland and Chicago and Detroit and Los Angeles and Oakland, where they went to those communities as refugees. And in my lifetime, that narrative of racial hierarchy, that ideology of white supremacy has persisted. And so even though I've been practicing law, I have a degree from Harvard Law School and have argued cases at the Supreme Court, I go places where I have to navigate this presumption of dangerousness and guilt, and I have to prove my worthfulness. I've been in courtrooms where I've been told to leave because the presumption was I was the defendant. I've been pulled out of my car and had police officers point a gun at my head, threatening to blow my brain out. And I think so much of what you're seeing now is the accumulation of the exhaustion and anger and fatigue. When you have to constantly navigate these presumptions, you have to constantly deal with this idea that you're not worthy of protection, you get tired. And people are tired, and that's what's being expressed. And that image just suggests how resistant our nation is to changing, to a commitment to truth and justice. And that's why, I've taken time from my legal career to start working on these cultural sites, building the memorial, building the museum. It's in part because I don't believe we would win Brown versus Board of Education today. I think we have actually retreated from the commitment of equality to the public, where we are now seeing new manifestations of sustaining racial hierarchy and white supremacy, and that picture captures it. And what the police and police officers and our military has to confront is that those images are really damaging. I mean, it was the police who met Black folks at the Edmund Pettus Bridge who were literally on their knees praying, and they bloodied and beat and battered them. It was the police that were the forces of opposition to racial integration in the 1950s and 60s. It's the police that have been a presence in Black communities that has been so oppressive. And that's why, to really change the problem we have, police officers and the military and others are going to have to recognize that we need a culture change. And that's what a lot of our work is about now.